Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention, maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey, g'day everybody. Welcome back to Voice of Gord. Short little intro here with some intel for y'all. As many of you may have heard, the ruling in the longest mischief trial in Canadian history on Freedom Convoy organizers Tamara Lich and Chris Barber, which was supposed to come down on March 12th, has been postponed. Very murky and lots of questions about the timing on that given other political considerations in Canada, but it is what it is. Because of that ruling's date, a number of events have been organized in Ottawa, but some of them are still going on. One of which is the continued trial dates for the next guest you're about to hear on my show, Mr. Guy Meister. Guy's a trucker from Nova Scotia who's been written about extensively by previous guest of this show, Donna Lawfare, who just published her book, Thank You Truckers, that I've discussed with her here twice. Guy has court dates in Ottawa at the Ontario Court of Justice on 161 Elgin Street in Ottawa on March 18th, 19th, and 24th. Interesting how they put a little gap in there, knowing that he lives a 2,000-mile round trip away from the courthouse out in Nova Scotia. Very convenient of them to make him stick around for all these extra days for the crime of parking his truck in the street. Anyhow, friend of this show, a fine lady you might know on Twitter by the name of Melissa McKee, is organizing something of a party for Freedom Convoy folks, lovers of liberty, anybody who participated, and friends and family of Guy Meister. And they're also going to have Donna Lawfare on site with copies of her new book, Thank You Truckers. The party is on Sunday, March 16th at the Bikers Church in Ottawa. Let me just get you the address here. That is at 155 Carolyn Street. So, Sunday, March 16th, 6:30 p.m., the Bikers Church. Go meet Donna, go meet Guy, go meet Melissa, hang out with some freedom-loving folks, buy a copy of Donna's book, and just, celebrate being a stand-up patriotic Canadian, celebrate your fellow freedom lovers, make some friends, meet some new people. I hope you guys can make it. If I can convince my wife to change her mind about something, I might drive up to Ottawa too for that date. You never know. Anyways, so we are going to get to the interview with Guy here in a second. If you have any questions or want to read more about Guy, I'm going to give you links to Donna's Substack. She's done the most to interview Guy and share his story online, so go check that out. Go buy her book, Thank You Truckers. Go buy my book next year when it comes out. I'm writing a book called End of the Road, Inside the War on Truckers. I'm probably going to feature Guy in a little bit of it and possibly Donna as well. That comes out in February 2026. If you want to help me write that book, I'll share donation links to that. I'm off work. I'm unemployed and dedicating myself to this project for the next few months. And every little penny could help. If you're feeling guilty about listening to this podcast for free, for the 2.5 years I've had it out here, in which I've never charged anybody a cent, now would be a good time to exchange some value if you can afford it, if you're of means. I know it's tough out there. You should probably actually give money to Guy's lawyer, Brian Duty, who's been doing the hard yards of defending Guy from this terrible, terrible example of lawfare. But anyway, all right, enough for me. Let's get to the show. I want to bring you guys Guy Meister. He's a great guy. You guys are going to really love this, especially the Mac enthusiasts. I'll have pictures in the show notes on my Substack. If you're listening to this on some other podcasting platform, go to my Substack, autonomoustruckers.substack.com. You can see all these photos of Guy in his truck there. All right, let's get to it. All right, g'day everybody. Welcome back to Voice of Gord. Good episode I've got here for you today. I'm recording with a gentleman who I've been looking forward to speaking with at length about his adventures in Lawfare, downstream of his adventures with the Freedom Convoy. This gentleman's a Mack enthusiast. He's got a very famous R Model Mack that sat on Sussex Street in downtown Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy. If you were there, you probably bumped into him or at least saw his truck. And now, 3 years later, he's one of the last people still being persecuted by the venal and vindictive regime of Justin Trudeau and the utterly vacuous fake nation state once known as Canada, which means different things to different people now. But please welcome to the show, Mr. Guy Meister.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic, Guy. Thanks for coming along.
No problem.
So I'm finding you in a different truck right now.
Yeah. My old Mac, I put an antique plate on it, and I don't haul with it anymore because I don't want to smash it up or nothing. So I just keep it at home and stare at it every now and then. And a lot of people stop and look at it and think it's pretty cool. So
yeah, well, I mean, if you're a fan of the Mad Max movies, in the second of the Mad Max films called The Road Warrior, Mel Gibson's character pilots an R Model Mack that looks an awful lot like yours.
Yeah. Mine, even that movie Convoy with Chris Christopherson, I even got the rubber duck hood ornament on the front of her. But yeah, it does look like them kind of things, I guess. When I got it, it was white, and I got a really good deal on the place I got it from. Said the motor was gone, but it ended up being just a push rod broke, so I fixed it right in the yard when I paid $1,000 for it and drove it out. So it was kind of neat.
That sounds like some old school trucking. My old man used to drive Max quite regularly. He used to work for a company out of Ontario called J-Line. J-Line is still around. I don't know how many Macs they have, but back when J-Line was first getting started in the early 1980s, Jim Townsley had a couple of R models and an old Ford L9000. And my dad used to drive this one R model that had no bunk on it, and he would load up a set of trains with steel coils for the canning plant there. They'd make cans for all the fish.
Yep.
And I think in New Brunswick somewhere. And then he'd come back to Ontario. He'd pick up lumber in New Brunswick or Quebec, and he'd come back to Ontario or Michigan with it. And it had no bunk, and it slept across the seats, you know. And on the way home, Townsley would torture my old man by having him stop in Heartland, New Brunswick, to pick up a Heartland bathtub, as they called them.
That was the old sleeper.
Yeah, like these custom built sleepers, and then Townsley would go and sell it to somebody else, and then send them back to New Brunswick with no bunk again.
Get another one. Yeah, they were they were in the bathtub too, exactly.
So where you're in Nova Scotia, right?
Yes.
Whereabouts exactly?
Annapolis Valley. There's about an hour and a half from Halifax. Halifax is like the capital of the province.
Right.
Kind of on the Bay of Fundy.
Right. So that's near, is that Greenville or Wolfville or something?
Greenwood. I'm about 3 miles from CFB Greenwood.
Okay. I got some friends from Ontario that moved out there recently. I'll have to hook you up with them. You can have a coffee and talk shop.
Yeah, and if they just moved here, I can show them some neat stuff.
Yeah, my buddy Scotty Tofen lives out there. He's from up the hill from where I grew up in Beamsville, Ontario. His folks were from like Pelham, Fonthill, and he drives for Earl Paddock Transport there at Stony Creek. And,
I've seen them trucks quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, Scotty's probably driving one of them. He's your neighbor, so if you see it in town, it's 99% chance.
Actually, I've seen them in this province as well, like because they're an Ontario base, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I've seen they're black trucks with a red stripe, I think.
Yeah, red and gold stripes, correct.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've seen them here.
Yeah, mostly Kenworths. They got a couple other bits and bobs here and there, but yeah, no, my dad worked for them. My uncle Chris worked for them. I worked for them for a long time, and I'm still friends with a bunch of them guys over there. Good people.
Yeah, they're all nice, shiny trucks too. Like they all always look nice, and yeah, no, they're
Yeah,
nice ones.
right. So you're. Did you always live in near Greenwood?
Yes, I was born about 5 miles the other way, and I did actually when I was 17, I moved to Windsor, Ontario for 6 years because my sister lived up there, and I always liked race cars and everything, so and cars, so that was the place to be. So I met some race car fellas up there, and we done a lot of neat stuff, built some cars. And if you ever heard of the Cast Car series that used to be in Canada, um, we built the first four cars for that series, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, Windsor's right across the river from Detroit, Motor City, USA, right?
right, yeah, I used to go there and just drive around all day because it was such a cool place.
What year is this?
Late '80s.
Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. That's when
Yeah,
they that's the RoboCop era. That's when things were really sideways in Detroit.
yeah, it was. I remember being on Fort Street, which was went under the Ambassador Bridge, and I was at a stop sign, and the Detroit police come right up fast beside me, and he says, "What are you doing?" That's well, I'm waiting for the light to turn. He said, "At nighttime, you don't wait for the light to turn here. You just slow down." And away they went, and I just drove through the red light, and I remember that clear as day.
Yeah, I remember Scott Paddock when he was teaching me how to drive. Like, I sort of went through a bit of an apprenticeship program. I ran local, ran running around Hamilton when I was in high school, and
Yeah.
Toronto, maybe London, Ontario. Didn't get too far away. And then when I was 20, they started sending me to Motown with 6-axle sleds and Michigan trains and all that,
Oh yeah.
hauling
Yeah.
coils.
Yeah.
And my first trip to Detroit ever was with Scott Paddock in a cab over Kenworth and a 6-axle Michigan sled. And he told me the same thing because
Yeah.
we went into Detroit at like 4:30 in the morning just to sort of beat traffic
Yeah.
and get where we needed to go. And he said, "What
Yeah.
if you're in town here at night like this, just sort of slow roll all the lights. Don't stop anywhere if you don't
Yeah.
have to."
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's and I was up there last summer. Um, we went to Wisconsin and got a couple vehicles for somebody, so we stopped at the Ford plant in Dearborn because we're both Ford pickup enthusiasts. So we took the tour of the plant and everything, which was really neat.
If you were running Wisconsin regularly, um, out of Nova Scotia, wouldn't you like I don't know. I just, why go through Toronto? I would take 40 across the top of Montreal and then 417 and 17 cross over at the Sioux
Yeah,
or something like that and go through northern Michigan.
yeah. No, we only did it the one. I got a 3 car hauler for my pickup truck, so somebody I know bought a couple cars out there, so I just hopped in my pickup and put their wedge trailer on the back and drove up. And then I haven't been to Detroit in a while, so I wanted to go that way anyway. Plus, the 17 and 11 right now was the most unsafe road in North America. It's crazy.
Yeah, I keep hearing stories, and there's a couple of, like, you probably see this on Facebook or whatever. I'm not on Facebook, but there's a couple of pages on Twitter. One's called 401 to Sarpanch, and another one's called Skilled Truckers Canada, who I think has a Facebook page as well. And
Yeah.
they keep posting videos and footage from crashes,
Oh,
and even all the local newspapers up there in Thunder Bay and Cochrane and
yeah.
New Liskeard and all that. They're just like, what the heck is going on here? I mean, they're not allowed to talk about why this is happening. They just report on it because talking about
Well, I
why is
experienced it last week. Yeah,
yeah, it's against the
I
rules to
experienced it
talk about
last week.
why.
It's crazy. Like, I was held up for 4 different accidents. One was 12 and a half hours because the poor fella in the pickup truck that got run over got killed. But um, all the tow yards, all up like from Kenora to North Bay, are the tow yards are all full of smashed up trucks. There's smashed up trucks everywhere. And one instance I come into coming home, I was just going down. I was up by Hearst, and this guy come along past me, and he stayed in the left lane on one of them long, long straightaways until cars came. Double line, round the corners, didn't matter. They just get out in the left lane, and what they do is they'll get behind you right up close, and they'll put their headlights on high beam, so one of the headlights shines in your mirror, and it gets you annoyed. Then you slow down and let them by, right? Well, and then I'm telling you, they just stay in the left lane and they force the way back in when somebody comes. It's obvious to see, but the Minister of Transportation in Ontario said that the 11 and the 17 is the safest road there is, but it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, no, anytime a government official opens their mouth, what they're
Yep,
telling you is BS, and you should interpret everything 180 degrees in the other direction.
exactly. My old boss said, if you want to be a good politician, be a failed businessman.
or
I
or
believe him.
or born with a silver spoon jammed up your ass like Jagmeet
Yeah,
Singh, or
yeah,
who's that lady?
yeah,
Who's that lady from Nova Scotia that used to be the big NDPer? Like her family was rich too.
yeah. And I can't. She's so insignificant that I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember her name.
Was it Alexa McDonough?
Alexa McDonough. Yeah, a long time ago. Alexa McDonough. Yeah, I bet you that's who it was.
Yeah, we're
But,
showing our age here, guy.
well, it's funny because since this convoy thing in Ottawa, like I was like the rest of the world and never thought about politics or nothing and stuff like that. But since I've been up there and I've seen it firsthand, I've learned that it's utterly crazy. You
Well,
know?
this is it. Is I think there's a lot of in on the internet we call them normies, right? Just sort of normal working class people that don't they're apolitical. They mostly don't vote, mostly don't care. Just trying to live their lives, trying to feed
Yeah,
their families. You know, fix up
yeah,
trucks, do whatever, mow their
yeah,
lawns, drink
yeah.
beer, and leave everybody else alone and expect to be left alone.
Right.
And Justin Trudeau come along and took the COVID nonsense and used that as a weapon to
Yeah,
attack the normies. And
yep.
now
No, you're 100% right.
and the normies came to Ottawa, and you were one of them. So like what happened that got you sent over to Ottawa with your Mac, sir?
Well, if you watch the movie Convoy, my truck looks just like that one. So a friend of mine was going. He says, "Well, there's a convoy happening, and you're not bringing your truck." He said, "Get in it and get going, right?" So, and then I talked to my wife about it, and she was telling me about it because I didn't understand. But it's like you say, I didn't pay attention to that kind of stuff. So I said to Jeff, I said, "Well, I'll go if the Mac will start. I'll go." So, anyways, I went out, and it was like minus 15 or whatever. And I hooked the truck up to each side of it to boost it, and it didn't turn over twice and start it. And I said, "Well, that was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was on the road at 6 on my way up." And then, because I didn't know too much about it when I first was found out about it, but the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to go. So it got uh, it got better and better as it was going. And then once I got there, holy jumping! It was at first I thought, well, shit, we're going to be here for an hour and get kicked out, but the Ottawa police actually guided me into the place where I was parked. So
Many such cases. They did that for a lot of people, which was part of the problem the government had in trying to make their case that this was
right,
illegal. And, when the cops were helping them out, just like what happened at January 6th, there's video footage of, Capitol Police and security letting people into the building, and everyone's saying, oh,
yep,
this is a crazy armed insurrection. Well, I mean, the cops let them in. Come on now. So
that's right, that's
before
right.
you left, before you left for Ottawa, Guy, like, was there some sense like what was happening in your neighborhood and with your own family and friends as far as the mandates or sort of the sort of social
Yeah.
atmosphere in general, like what was going on?
Well, it was very simple to pick out a liberal to a non-liberal is one of the things, but they were making all these rules and things like that about not being able to go from like you had to literally stay in your town. So as soon as I figured that with the commercial truck you would allow going places, so I just got an old magnetic business sign that I found in an old junk car, and when I'd come up to the checkpoint, I'd put that sticker on the side of my pickup truck, and then the whoever was at the checkpoint would think I'm a commercial business, and they just let me through, right? So I did that for 2 or 3 weeks, and but there's people that literally wouldn't leave their house. lot of family members and stuff. I had some people get mad at me for moving around, but you know, it's I would tell them that if it was that big of a deal and if it was so dangerous, how come they're still letting all the airplanes come and go? You know, how come the liquor stores are all open, right?
Yeah, no, it was obvious for anybody to see that they weren't actually serious about this, and it was just a method by which to extract money out of people and control them and see what they could get away with in that controlling for the next time
Yes,
something came up.
I think it was a test. I think it was a test to see for the government to see how far they can go because it didn't add up to me.
No, it didn't add up to a lot of people, which is why so many went to the Freedom Convoy. I live in the United States now, and I've told this story many times. I went home out of a sense of solidarity with my fellow truckers and my fellow Canadians for what was going on up north. And I had gone to visit my sister in Southern Ontario a couple times in 2020 and 2021. I mean, they have to let me back in. I didn't have a vax card or anything. I just told PHAC
Yep,
and all of them to go fuck themselves.
exactly. Yep,
And under the law, they have to let me in. I'm still a Canadian citizen. They couldn't refuse me
yep,
entry. And I was just looking around at like how people were acting and what was going on. And the Ontario provincial government shut down my sister's barber shop a
yeah,
bunch of times. And I can't really talk about this, but anyway, let's just say she kept going. And
yep, yeah. I have I have a 4-wheel drive rally at my house every year, and I got a monster truck that I do rides with at different events. So it's an old ride. It's an old monster truck, but they converted it to a ride truck. But anyway, when the thing was on, nobody would have the whole summer. Nobody would have their 4-wheel drive race because they were scared of what was going to happen. So I dug into it a little bit, and it turned out is as long as you did your due diligence to make those 10-foot places and stuff like that. What do they call them? The tent the space that you had. Social distance, yeah. So as long as you did your diligence to do the social distancing, you could have events up to a certain amount of people. But then there was nobody to police it, right? So how were they going to know? So Sunday, what I did is my date was on a Sunday. So I went and my field, I got a 22-acre field that we have these races in. So I went to our local ballpark and I borrowed the little thing that makes the white lines on the side of the baseball diamond thing. And I think I made 200 10-foot squares out in my field. And that would give people the social distancing, they could see every 10-foot square so they could supposedly sit in their square and not worry about nothing. But by me doing that, it made me do my due diligence to make an effort to do the social distancing. So nobody came, right? Oh, I'm sorry. A lot of people came and raced, but no authorities came and I was kind of waiting for them and then some people did call me. They said, well, what are you going to do about your truck and the rides? I said, well, I don't wash with alcohol and I don't wear a mask. So it's your decision. If you want to come along. If you don't, you don't have to. So, but there was still a big turnout at that event, right?
yeah,
So,
well, life has to go on, and people still want to do things.
right, right,
And most people who would have quote unquote read the science would have realized that the likelihood of you getting this thing and perishing from it if you are under the age of 60 and relatively healthy was infinitesimal, and even less so and closer to zero if you were a child or a teenager.
right,
And
right.
so it made no sense to close the
No,
schools, and
no,
they should have done targeted protection for vulnerable people and left it at that. But no, they had to turn society upside down and send you on a very long journey to Ottawa. Remind me, Guy, Annapolis Valley to Ottawa is a bit of a drive.
yeah, it's 1,600 kilometers, I think, if I remember right.
That's 1,000 miles.
Yeah,
And so if you do that round trip, it's 2,000 miles.
yep, exactly. Yeah,
So, and you've had to do that round trip a number of times.
yeah. If I remember right, I've made 19 appearances and 16 trips. So yeah, 16 trips back and forth. Yeah.
Right. So you are still facing charges stemming from the parking of your beautiful R Model Mack on Sussex Street.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You were in Ottawa for the whole thing. You were basically there for 3 weeks, correct?
Yeah, 28 days.
4 weeks. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Okay, and I think you were parked next to a fellow with a Freightliner, and you were shacked up with him.
yeah. That was my friend Mike Jameson. He had bunk beds and I had none, so it was funny because the first night we got there, it was minus 28, and we never checked the upstairs, like the bunk beds in the truck or nothing. But I folded it down, and there was no goddamn mattress on it. So my first night was on plywood, but that was that was funny. But anyway, that's just what you just got to deal with it. But he passed away 6 months after we got home.
Right. Well, peace be upon him.
Yeah, he's a really good fellow, and he had nothing to hide from, so he's in the right spot. He passed away in his truck, so that's the way he would have wanted to go.
Was he? He wasn't driving at the time, was he?
No, he picked up in New Brunswick and was supposed to deliver in Halifax, and he didn't deliver in Halifax the next day. So his son called me because I knew where he always camped out and stuff because I've been on trips with my truck behind him, and he always, you certain stop at certain spots. So we started checking the spots from Halifax to New Brunswick, and the third one we seen his truck there, and I get up in it, and he was laying in it cold. So
Oh no. Oh, that's terrible.
yeah, yeah, and that's. But I know for a fact he doesn't mind. Well, that's where he would have wanted to pass away. He wouldn't want to have been in a nursing home for 6 months or something. And he was a really good fella.
Right. So the two of you,
But we're all headed there. So
we are. Nobody here gets out alive.
nope, nope. I've never seen a hearse with a U-Haul.
No, that's that's what my uncle Chris always says. Hearses don't come with trailer hitches.
Nope, that's right. Yeah, for sure.
You're in Mike's truck in Ottawa
Yeah,
for 28 days. Did you sleep in his truck the whole time?
yeah, yeah. Every night.
And what was your experience like during the day, right? So you're there, you're hanging out with your Mac. There's plenty of photos of your truck and people with signs and stuff in front of it. So like were you just hanging out by
Yeah,
your trucks all day, every day for all 4 weeks?
yeah. There was maybe I think there was a lot of people that lived in Ottawa, lived close, and they would come and they would say, "Well, come to my house, get a shower, whatever." Like all that stuff was pretty well. Um, there was no shortage of the people wanting to help. But you get up in the morning and there'd be there was never one morning that there wasn't at least 4 or 5 people walking around with coffee, and they'd buy them Tim Hortons 10 cup things, and they'd pour you a coffee. And I remember one time I had 2 coffees in my truck, and there was a lady come up. She says, "I want to go in and buy you a coffee." I said, "Well, I got a couple now, thanks." She says, "No." She says, "This is the first time in 2 years I've been into Tim Hortons without a mask on. I just want to go in again." So she ended up going in and buying me another one. But and then every day it was just you meet people. Um, there was a lot of people glad we were there, and it's just I met people from Poland, from England. There was one lady. I usually get up about 7, go get I bought a newspaper for every day that the thing was going on. But there was a lady come in. She was in a bit of a rush, and she had a tablet thing, and I'm not sure how to use that stuff good. But anyway, she got up. She said, "Can I get in your truck and you get a picture of me in your truck?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So, anyways, she did it, and I took her thing and got a picture. And I said, "Well, how come you got to get a picture?" And we were just talking, making conversation. So she just had gotten there from England, and nobody in England believed what was going on. So she literally flew over, got a picture, took out like a wide scan of what was going on, and half an hour later was back at the airport flying home. So she literally flew over to get a picture in the truck to prove to everybody at home what was going on, and then she went home, which was quite something, I thought.
Yeah, that's some serious citizen journalism. It's funny you mentioned that
Yeah,
guy because one of the reasons I end up starting this podcast and doing the writing I've been doing is because I went there and I come back to the United States after being in Ottawa that first weekend, and the media smear campaign against you guys was already in full swing. And I think most Americans are pretty skeptical of the government, not all of them, but
yeah,
most of them. And they're also fairly skeptical of the media, at least the ones that, are not zapped by NPR or total and complete and utter libtards. and they
Yeah.
didn't. They like there was a sense that like, hold on a minute, we saw all these social media videos last week of all these smiling, waving people holding flags, all these trucks driving by, and everybody's happy. And now they're in Ottawa, and the
Yeah.
media is saying that they're Nazis and they're burning down apartment buildings and
Yeah.
robbing food banks. I mean, all that stuff turned out
Yeah.
to be lies. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I start writing about it, and I'm telling people like, no, man, this was like one of the purest expressions of like love and salvation like I've ever taken part in. Like as soon as I got to Ottawa, like
Yeah.
I knew this was so about so much more than the truckers, and so much more than their own vaccine mandate. Something deep in the human spirit was touched, and so many
Yeah.
people were coming out to help, and smiles everywhere. I mean, obviously everybody was hopped up on caffeine given all the coffee floating around, but like at the same
Yeah. Yeah.
time, the media and the government in Canada were lying their asses off about what
Oh,
was actually going on. And so this lady flies all the way from England on her own dime to find out. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And the amount of people that were supporting it to me, will never be known, because I was like an hour and a half away on the way in Van Cleek Hill. And, there was people on the overpasses. You couldn't fit any more people on the overpasses. And it was overpass after overpass after overpass, right? And on the way up, I had a couple flags on my truck. Well, it was the first time I've ever gone through Montreal that people would literally get out of your way. Like usually they're cutting you off, right? But people were allowed, and then they'd wave when you go by, and you know. So the amount of people that supported it was way beyond what was let on,
Oh,
and
of
that's
course it
that's a
was.
fact. That
Yeah, I had a guy, out of all my old friends in Canada, I used to live, Beamsville, Niagara region, Hamilton. I spent a lot of time hanging out with folks in Toronto when I wasn't working. And a lot of those folks, leaned left. And out of all of that milieu of people who all saw my stuff at Newsweek and were paying attention to the convoy, only one of them called me to say, hey, what's going on? And I think he did it because he
yeah,
was like egged on by other of my friends to say, hey, stop talking smack about Gord online, and why don't you just talk to him? So anyway,
exactly, yeah,
this guy calls me, and one of the things he was really hung up on was like, there wasn't that many people. I've seen crowds. Like he basically saw one picture of Parliament Hill and then forgot about the rest of the city, forgot about all of the convoys, all of the supporters, all of the overpasses,
yeah,
coast
yep,
to coast to
yep,
coast. And like
yep.
he wanted to fight me about the numbers of people that actually supported it. Like he just got hung up on that, you know?
Well, it was crazy. Like I don't know. I remember my wife said she looked on CTV News and they said there was 12 trucks and 200 people there. Well, there was a young fella. Yeah, that's what CTV News said. There was a young fella that went and counted all the trucks that were close, and there were 617 trucks. He said he counted right in the downtown core. Right, they were everywhere, blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks. There was no roads blocked that you could literally drive away anytime you wanted.
Yeah, this was
Like
one of the big lies was that they couldn't get emergency vehicles through. And then the one time that like an emergency vehicle got stuck, it was stuck because of a city of Ottawa vehicle, not because of the Freedom Convoy.
right, and I had a really hands-on experience with that, because there was two policemen that would come down and they'd advise us as what's going on. They'd let us, bring trucks in at night, and they were pretty good fellows. But anyway, they would come down and they would tell me that in 15 minutes you're going to see CTV News come down by your truck. Then you're going to see two fellas go stand by your driver's door and fight and argue about you guys blocking the road for the ambulance. And then in a little bit more, you're going to see an ambulance come up, and they wanted to get it on the news that we were blocking the road and not letting the ambulance through. So I'm really glad that them cops come down. So I'd watch the news go set up on the corner there, and point at my truck and Mike's truck, and then I'd see the two fellas come down and argue, and whichever truck they would go argue by, I'd just go start it up and get the air all pumped up. And then when I'd see the ambulance come, I would like move the truck, get it, make lots of room for the ambulance to go through. And the ambulance never went through. It always stopped where the truck was. then the news people would get mad and pack up and slam their shit around and go away. Then the two fellows would leave and the ambulance would turn around and go the other way. So that, to me, they wanted to get it on the news that we were blocking the road, right, for the ambulance. So, and that happened 3 times.
Yeah, no, and it's amazing. People still believe it, even after the Public Order Emergency Commission, even after all of the books that have come out about the Freedom Convoy detailing the truth of what happened.
Yep.
There's just still some people that are hanging on for dear life to this lie that like you guys
Yep.
were bad guys and not just regular working class Canadians standing up for your rights. And I mean,
Right. Right.
what more proof do they need than the fact that here you are over 3 years later and you're
Yeah.
still fighting the government off? So what happened? How did you end up being the target of lawfare? So like what happened at the end of the
Well,
convoy?
to me, it was me and Mike was a couple of the first ones that got arrested in in my court case. Um, the police said one of them, the detective said, if as soon as you was linked to a truck, you was arrested. Period. No questions asked. So a couple statements later, it came up that there was 28 trucks in our intersection, and 27 of them, no, 25 of them drove away. So if you was linked to a truck, which everybody was, and you was arrested as soon as you was linked to a truck, how come 25 of them got to drive away, and me and Mike and a fella in a pickup truck was the only three that got towed, right? So that made me think that, because we weren't asked to leave. Those other guys, they said, if you leave right now, you can leave. But me and Mike and another guy named Robert Donnell in the pickup, we weren't asked to leave. We were just handcuffed and took away, right? Which I wouldn't have left anyways, and none of us would have. But anyway, so to me, right from the first thing, they wanted to use us as an example to the rest of the fellas, um, that this is what's going to happen. Because when he went up to Mike and we was both sitting in his truck, um, they said, "Get out of the truck." So before he had his hand on the doorknob, they had his window beat out of his side, right? And they opened up the door and they drug him out. Then they came around to my side, and I thought, well, only way to avoid that is to get out and stand there. So I went out and stood there, and they put the zippy ties on me, and away we went. So that and then from then on, it's my lawyer says that legally they can't beat this case, so they want me to get tired and they want me to wear me out. And the judge has asked me 3 times, you must be get sick of coming here by now, right? And what do you say to that, right? I just say, well, I enjoy the drive. It's you got to do what you got to do, right? So
well, well, one of the things that like a few people have pointed out, and shout out to our friend Donna Laframboise, who just
yes,
published her new
yes,
book, Thank You Truckers. And that's how I found out about you, through Donna's great Substack, and heard about your
yeah,
story and saw all the photos. um I think it was Donna or maybe me. I think maybe I was talking to her once about this ongoing case of lawfare where you keep having to go back to Ottawa,
yeah,
and we have a government that's been sniffing its own farts about climate change, climate change, climate change, climate change. We got to reduce
yeah,
our carbon emissions.
yeah,
And here they are making you drive or fly a
yeah,
2,000-mile round
yeah,
trip to
yeah,
Ottawa, what, 16, 17 times now?
yeah. 16 with a couple of Zoom meetings for the same ticket you get for painting a park bench. Like
Right.
that's all it is.
So,
It's the
yeah,
smallest of smallest.
what exactly are the charges you're still facing?
It's mischief, is it? And it's actually this is another argument my lawyer has. It's the wrong charge because for one thing, the charge of mischief has to have a money value. It's like mischief over 5,000 or mischief under 5,000 or mischief over 1,000 or under 1,000. But mine is just plain mischief. And it's he brings out he's I've learned a lot from him, but he brings this thing about corporate property and real property. Like the real property is the intersection, um, but the corporate property is the real property is the pavement, the dirt, and all that stuff. but the corporate property would be the intersection itself, like you call it an intersection. That's the corporate property. You can't damage the corporate property, and we didn't damage the real property. So the mischief charge has to have damages in it somewhere, and nothing was damaged. So it's, you know, I'm learning a lot about this stuff, and there's a lot I don't know, but my lawyer's like Columbo, I think.
What's your
Really
lawyer's
smart.
name?
Brian Duty.
Brian Duty, that's right. Yeah, I've texted with Mr. Duty a couple times. Duty Counsel. He's got a great name actually when you put it
Yeah,
together.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And he's see, he's to me, he's on a different level than the Crown and all these guys, because they he said that they ignore the facts, or they ignore the law and make up the facts, right? And he goes by the law, and he's proven, I think, 27 times now where they've literally been on the stand and they lie. And the video that we've got of the policeman at that certain time shows them the exact opposite of what they say. And the judge says, well, you know, if that's what the video says, that must be what the video, that must be what happened. And nothing happens. They don't get charged with perjury. They don't get kicked off as a witness. They just, you know, nothing happens to them.
Well, so this
So,
this is a point. So that brings up a good point, Guy. One of the things I find extremely frustrating about these processes and these cases and these court appearances is the judges can see clearly that there's no case, right? Like I've interviewed a number of people now. There's a young lady from Peterborough named Christine DeCare that got caught up in this, and her boyfriend, and a bunch of other folks. And in every case, like you say, there are the facts, and then there's the law, and the government is
yeah,
making up the facts and ignoring the
yeah,
law.
$100.
Why have the judges not just said, like, I've seen enough of this garbage, case dismissed? I believe that the judges are living in fear of their own careers, and like in Canada, 77% of the judiciary are members of, donors to, and or appointees of the Liberal Party of Canada, right? It's like one big club. If you want to get anywhere,
Yeah,
in your career as a judge and move further up the bench and keep in good standing with your peers, you kind of have to
yeah,
toe the line a little bit, right? Because
yeah,
otherwise,
yeah.
I think these judges do have the power. They do have the discretion to say, this case is bogus and I'm dismissing it. Get out of my courtroom and stop wasting my time, and
100% right.
stop wasting the time of these innocent people. But they're not doing it.
No, they're obviously making, to me, they're getting promoted or making money or doing what they're told, right? They don't give a shit about the law. They're just doing what they're told, you know. Like, I got a new crown prosecutor. My crown prosecutor has been stumped many times by Brian. So Brian just told me that the other day that I've got a new one, and this guy is supposed to be some spindly little uh, snake, right? Just as he's the guy that asked for 10 years for Pat King, like just a douchebag, right? So he's my new crown prosecutor. So we'll just have to deal with that. But
Yeah.
I got nothing to be afraid of, because in my mind, in the end, it's it's got to happen the way it's supposed to, and it's got to be proper. So either that or the whole justice stuff is bought off and no good,
Right. Yeah. There's I've been following
I
this
think.
case out in Alberta, these fellas at Coots, for a couple of years now. And I've heard through the grapevine that the Crown prosecutor in the case, I have to go look this up online actually when I get off the phone with you, because I got tipped off to this from a friend of mine in Western Canada, that the Crown prosecutor in the Coots case, this guy named Stephen Johnston, has disappeared. He's not listed on the Crown prosecutor website anymore. He's not listed as an
Okay.
employee of the feds of the
Yeah.
province of Alberta. Like, he's just poof. That,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure what's going on with that. I got to check into it, but like, you know, I got to wonder what kind of soul do you have, having been a cop involved in either arresting any of you guys who weren't doing anything wrong, just hanging out, and or the crown prosecutors and lawyers for the government who are they must know they're not stupid. They didn't get to be lawyers by being stupid. They know that they're
Right.
in contravention of the law. They know that they're making
Yeah.
stuff up. They know that it's all bogus, but they do it anyways. Like I don't I, like
Yeah. There's no accountability. They know they can do what they want, right? Because the system is so corrupt. And like, far as I'm concerned, different people say, well, this policeman was just doing his job. Well, if I'm helping somebody paint a house and I see a guy painting the windows, I'm going to say something to him out of common sense. So these corrupt policemen, if there is policemen that are good, why aren't they saying anything to the corrupt ones, right? You know, like I heard it was 6 months now to go to be for in Regina to be an RCMP. So I thought, well, I'm going to go become an RCMP and I'm going to go arrest Trudeau. It's I'd love to do that, right?
wouldn't we
Because if they was
all?
doing their job, they would. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, the real criminals are always in management. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So what are people in your neck of the woods out there in Nova Scotia saying about all this talk about Trump and annexation and 51st state? What are people
Oh,
feeling about that?
I went down to the inauguration, and it was really cool.
You went to
Um,
DC?
oh yeah, oh yeah. I was down. I was right down. I was 75 feet from the stage. I got there the day before. I was number 20 in line to get in. I wasn't going to miss that for the world.
Oh wow, good for
So
you.
yeah, it was cool. Um, but the people that know me, I do a few zany things and stuff. So oh yeah, they said I'd expect you to get down to to something like that, or just because it was so far to go and stuff like that. Which is not, to me, I don't care, right? If I want to go do it, I'm going to go do it. But the whole we're all being misled by the media. It's kind of like the convoy thing, really. Excuse me, because everybody's being misled about these tariff things, and if people would listen, or the news would say what, like when he first came out with it, I remember him saying that if you stop or put in an effort to slow the fentanyl down and stop the illegal immigration, you won't get the tariffs. But what did our government do? They never done nothing, right? They absolutely went on vacation. And Doug Ford and our Premier Houston, well, we're gonna double the cost on the Cobequid Pass toll road to American trucks. Well, fuck, there's 10 pardon my language, there's 10 American trucks a day, you know, so it's so insignificant
Did he
to
really say?
reality.
Did he really say that about the Cobequid Pass?
Yes, yes, they said they're doubling the fees for American trucks on the Cobequid Pass. You know what that is?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Been over it a
Yeah,
bunch of times. Yeah.
like, how retarded can you be? You know?
Well, so there was a. Did you hear that the premier of BC, this communist fucktard named David Eby, who was
Yeah.
reelected recently under some very murky
Yes.
circumstances and
Yeah.
counting and stuff, he did the same thing. He said, "You know what we're going to do? We're going to impose an extra fee on American trucks transiting to Alaska through BC. So basically, if you were going up the Alaska Highway and you come to the scale there in Dawson Creek in BC, or
Yeah.
you come up from Washington or whatever, and you had an
Yeah.
American plate, they were going to like pull you in and assess a extra fee on you just to go back and
Yeah.
forth to Alaska. Like, who do these
Yeah.
pinheads think they are? Like, why
Well,
punish? Why punish? They're just punishing truckers again, right? Like, they're not harming
exactly
Trump
it.
with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Exactly it. And to me, if I understand correctly, if he imposed tariffs on us, it's only going to raise our price of stuff 2%. But yet, not one bit of news has talked about the carbon tax that's going up in April, 19%. So they're being very selective of what they do, and they're being very um I don't know, I don't know the word for it, but I'm going to say condemning on Donald Trump for wanting to do what he said in his election, which would be make this country better. you know.
Right. Well,
And
see, the thing is their idea of better and our idea of better are a couple of different things, right? And
yep,
the
no, you're
issue
100% right.
and the people behind Trump, there's some very smart people in his
Yeah.
coalition, and
Oh yeah.
they are not dumb, and they see what's happening in Canada. They see that Trudeau's drove the place into the ground.
Yep.
They
Yep.
see that the new guy, Mark Carney, they're trying to bring in, wants
Oh, that
to
guy's, yeah.
he basically wants to make it impossible for Alberta Oil to do any business.
Yep. Yep.
He's one of these people that believes in throwing money at the sky to appease it. So he's going to drive Canada further into the toilet. Trump's
Yep.
people have also seen this bogus Hogue inquiry where after revelations of the Chinese Communist Party being involved in electing MPs and interfering in Canadian
Yep.
politics all the way back to the Mulroney years, and then just saying, "Oh, nothing to see here." Like they
Yeah.
understand what's going on, and they also understand, like, never mind China, Trump's people understand that the Democratic Party in the US, the people he just defeated, are not going to like slow any of this down. And they are in cahoots with the Liberals and the NDP in
Yeah.
Canada, who are in
Yeah.
cahoots with like the World Economic Forum
Yeah.
and like the
Yeah.
Soros Foundation and all these NGOs and all of these like international, global, unaccountable money laundering forces that want to set up camp in Canada to continue to attack normal people next door in the United States. Like
Yeah.
Trump won't say it, but I'll say it. I think what we're trying to do here, or what he should be doing, is instead of this 51st state annexation nonsense, because Canada is its own thing with its own unique people and ethnos and history that can and
Yeah.
should be separate from the United States. What he should do is regime change. The Americans are good at like blowing stuff up and rounding people up and putting them in jail, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they got this huge base at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba that's not doing very much right now. They've only got about 70 something guys left over from the war on terror, and they can house hundreds, if not over 1,000 people
Yeah.
there. Round up the Liberal Party, all its supporters, all the
Yep.
banksters, all of these
Yep.
crooks in the Canadian media. Just round them up, take them to Gitmo for 10 years, and allow the Canadian people to like have new elections, draw up a new constitution, put the adults back in charge,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just have a peaceful regime change operation. Doesn't have, we don't have to blow anything up. Don't have to do anything
Don't
stupid.
don't just
Just arrest the like 1% of the Canadian ruling class that are really the criminals.
yes.
Send them to Gitmo and start over.
Yep. No, you're 100% right. Like it's, and I don't understand um how he is still in power. I don't because like I'm not really a super political fella, but common sense is common sense, you know. And the stuff that he's done, and like even these minister, like the minister of employment, and I think his name is this Randy Boissonneau fella. He started a company when COVID started, and supposedly sold the government $38 million worth of rubber gloves and gowns. Well, they have this. I think it's a some sort of a committee in question period up here in Parliament. The government never got any gowns. They never got no rubber gloves. This guy lied about everything. He even said he was a native to get the native contracts. And $38 million is gone that he's got. And they got this thing called parliamentary protection, and he can't get in trouble for what he did. You know, he literally lied right to the people in Parliament. And I've asked a couple of politicians, like, when they catch you, what is the punishment? They said pretty well is all they can do is just smear your name a little bit, and that's it. So there's no legality of getting charged with fraud or nothing like that. They just get away with it. That's the way they made it. And now Trudeau's got 100 of the 105 people in the Senate here are all appointed by him, and these are the lawmakers. So how you fight that? You know,
Well, you can't, which
it's
is why I'm suggesting that we need a regime change operation because Trudeau's poisoned the well so
yep,
bad, and it's not just him. He's just the hood ornament for a really ugly truck called the Laurentian Elite, right? And the Laurentian Elite
yes,
are
it's
like
the whole bunch of them.
a
It's
number of families from Montreal and Ottawa and Toronto that really run the show. They're on the boards of the
yep,
corporations. They're the judges. They are the people in government. They run the stock market. They do all the things, and they've been around since forever, and they're in
Yeah.
charge. And it's just a matter of, pick a selection of them, send them to Gitmo, and say no more, or we'll send the rest of you there too, and we're starting over again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and I think if you did that, and common sense would say, well, if all my buddies are going to jail because they're being crooked, maybe I should stop being crooked, right? But I don't think they're smart enough to realize that. You know?
Oh no, the trouble isn't that they're not smart enough. The trouble is that they're evil and they're corrupt and they don't care.
Right. Right.
And
They don't care about the old lady down the road that's eating craft dinner because she can't afford nothing else to eat, right? Or they're like, there's people in our towns that have to have the heat turned down where it's cold in their house because they can't afford to eat. You know,
That's
I don't think
despicable.
that's right. Yeah, I don't
No,
think that's right.
no, and there's millions of people living here on student visas and
Yep.
temporary foreign workers, and they're all demanding this and demanding that. I'm sorry, the Canadian government works for people who were born and grew up here. If
Right.
temporary foreign worker, what's the first word there? Temporary.
Yep.
Uh,
And the other day, the Alberta or the Ontario government says, well, we're not going to issue any more truck driving licenses to temporary citizens. So, but my thought is, why were you doing it in the first place? You
Yeah,
know,
I'm
and
interviewing a guy, so I'm interviewing this gentleman on my show here on Friday, a couple days, and he is part of an organization called American Truckers United, and he has been investigating this problem with truck drivers from other countries coming to America and being issued CDLs,
yep,
and they don't have much in the way of training. A lot of them don't speak any English, and the question is why,
no,
right? And my answer to that, like where I have some expertise, is like I've been a critic of this thing called the truck driver shortage narrative. They always keep saying there's not enough truck drivers. That's not true. It's never been true.
no, you're right.
There's 10 million people in the United States with CDLs and only about 2 million trucking jobs, and there's a few others that require a CDL.
Yep,
But roughly
yep,
speaking, there are 3 times as many people in America who have licenses to drive as there are jobs to give them. The
yep,
problem is nobody wants to pay, nobody wants to fix issues in the industry, and the same thing is going on in Canada. They've used this
yep.
lie. Stephen Harper said it. This, Pierre Poilievre has stood in front of people and said there's a shortage of truck drivers. That's not true. It's a lie.
You're right.
It's always been a lie,
Yep,
and you guys are
yep.
using it as an excuse to insource labor from the third world to suppress
Yep.
people's wages. That's all it's
No,
about,
you're
is
100%
paying
right.
people cheap. And to get back to the start of our conversation, all these accidents on highways 11 and 17 in Northern Ontario, which have basically become death traps, that's the result
Yep,
of this lie. They have lied, and what they did
yep,
is they used it to justify bringing all these Indians to Canada to drive truck. Most of them have no idea what they're doing, don't speak English. In their culture, they have no consideration for getting along with other people on the road. And then they get on these
yep,
like cold, snowy, icy roads in Northern
yep,
Ontario and drive like maniacs and keep getting in
yep,
wrecks. We should
yep.
be allowed to say that. The newspapers that talk about it, oh, we just need to train these people more. There's too many dangerous drivers. Yeah, that's right. They're dangerous and they're Indians and they were brought here because of a lie.
Right,
Please tell the
right.
truth. Tell the truth.
Yep,
Don't just say, oh, there's all these accidents. Gee, I wonder what's going on here. No, we know exactly what's going on.
yep. I lived it last week when I went from Winnipeg to here. It was utterly crazy. You know, they got to learn that cruise control in snow doesn't work. You know, it don't, right? And it's just, I don't know. I don't think they're going to identify the problem. Anybody with common sense can see the problem. Just go up and drive the road once. Like, I'm not too worried about driving anywhere, but I don't want to. Like, I won't drive on that road at nighttime for sure. The other day I wouldn't, and um, there's just I'll probably until like something changes. When you go on a two, it was I think it's 2,200 kilometers across there, and you see 4 or 5 accidents on the way out, and then you see 4 or 5 on the way back. I joined this group called 1117 Kills, and I joined that group, and I'm telling you, 3 or 4 times a day, there's them bad accidents on that road. right? And when I used to go out there before, that never was, but now it is the fellas that drive on it, and there's nothing they can't avoid it, right?
You know what's
Well,
funny,
I guess they
Guy?
can because they're
You know what's funny is, you and I have driven many accident free miles, and
yeah,
these people in government and the media, oh, why is all this happening? Well, come talk to us, right? Like,
exactly,
I have driven up and down 1117, both of them. I've driven out west in my pickup, trucking.
yeah,
I've been back and forth on 17 more times than I can count. And how many accidents
yeah,
did I get in? Zero.
right,
Zero. How
right,
many accidents have I ever been involved in? Have I gotten a collision with anybody? Zero. Why is it? Why
yeah,
does the government not come and say, "Oh, hey Gord," or "Hey Guy," or "Hey any other high mileage, totally safe operator"? What are we doing
yeah,
wrong here? What do we need to teach these people, or what is it we could do to affect some change on the road? No, they don't talk to
right,
us. They talk to themselves and other bureaucrats, and
yeah.
they have
When
meetings.
they're
And
sitting behind the office,
that's
yeah,
right. They're sitting in an office, they have meetings, they go on Zoom calls, and they don't talk to anybody that knows what's going on. Because if they talk to somebody
right,
that knows what's going on, the lies about what's happening will be revealed.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, and they don't know how to deal with that. It's. I had a really neat experience on the way out because I hauled a car crusher out for a friend of mine, and I knew there was this little bit of a storm coming, so I put brand spanking new drive tires on my truck, and good. Anyways, had all good tires on it. So I'm going up by North Bay. There's a little town called Metawawa or Metawa,
Mattawa.
2 hours east. Mattawa. Yeah. Anyway, this couple was following me. They followed me for 2 hours, so I pulled into the Husky or the Petrocan just north of North Bay to get some fuel and a snack. Geez, they come right up to me. They said, we haven't seen a truck driver let people come in front of them being that courteous, right? She said, we followed you for 2 hours. And they ended up buying me lunch. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I used
But
to get that too. And I would run out west. I often trucked at night to, avoid other traffic,
yeah,
and scales are usually
yeah,
closed and all that. And I would, back in the day when more people had CB radios, a lot of people in cars would have them
yeah,
too. And so one time
yeah,
I'm up near Sudbury, and these two ladies get in behind me, and they're in a pickup truck, and they say, "Hey, you got a grip in the paddock heading north?" And I said, "Oh yeah, no, it's me. How's it going? What can I do for you?" And they said, "Hey, we're a little bit afraid of the moose. You mind if we like tuck in behind and follow you?" And I
yeah,
said, "Yeah, no
yeah,
problem. Just keep your high beams down and don't get too close." And
yeah,
I sat and
yeah,
chatted with them ladies. It turns out they were like selling Avon or Tupperware or whatever, and they were from Sault Ste. Marie,
yeah,
and they followed me all the way along 17, all the way. I ran into them somewhere between Perry Sound and Sudbury, and they followed me all the way to the Sioux. You know,
yeah.
and
But kind of neat, but they felt safe behind you.
yeah, you do that. You used to do that kind of thing for people, and it was
Yep,
like no big deal.
yep. You used to stop and help people, and but
So
now it's too dangerous.
speaking of helping people, detour away from all this terrible politics. And
Yep,
in the stories you've been telling Donna, and in the Substacks she's been writing about you, um, there's a number of incidents where this old R model you bought, showing its age, had some issues on your way to Ottawa and on your way home, and all kinds of
yep.
people helped you out. So let's get to the good news. Tell me about the
Oh,
stories of people helping you with your truck.
well, the first the first time when I was fueling up to go up, I had the flags on the front and everything. So I pulled into the local gas station in Kingston, fueled up, and when I went in to pay for it, there was a fella that had already paid for it and left. So I thought, holy jumpings. Anyway, I seen this car leaving the gas station with veteran plates on it, so I figured it was him. Anyway, that's where it started. So we, I thought that was kind of cool. So I got ready and I was on my way, and then I was up near actually near Hartland, New Brunswick, and my alternator belts blew off. So I pulled into this to this. It was a Massey Ferguson dealership, and I had belts and everything, so I had the hood up, and it was cold. And I'm putting the belts on, and this guy comes out in a suit, and two mechanics come. He said, "What's your problem?" I said, "Well, I'm just changing my belts." And I said, we go sit in your truck, and these guys will finish it, and we got to bring it in the shop. We bring it in the shop. So that happened, and then going, I think I was near um, Quebec City, going down the road, and it was, you know what it's like when everything starts freezing up. It's damp, and then it gets cold. Well, my valves all froze up. My windshield wipers froze up because in them old trucks they all run by air. So I had no wipers, so we had to pull into a rest area, and we wasn't not a. It was a gas station, I guess. We wasn't there 5 minutes, and there was like four pickups. Three of them were, I'm sorry, two of them were mechanics. One was just a person, and another one, her husband was a mechanic. They wouldn't leave until my wipers worked, until we had the ice all thawed out. We put some methyl hydrate in it, and yada yada yada. So that was all right. You know, that was pretty cool. So when we got to Ottawa, my heater didn't work in my truck, and it was cold. So I didn't say too much about it. You just dressed for it, and I'm sitting there talking to this mechanic, and he wanted a lift, and we're just talking about the different possibilities what the heater could be. So there was a fella behind me, and he was doing some sort of a live stream or something. But he heard me say my heater didn't work, and I drove. He didn't hear the whole conversation. He just heard no heater, and I drove from Halifax, right, or home, which it is what happened. But I wasn't, I was just dealing with it. And I didn't say it to get sympathy or nothing. All of a sudden, all my Facebook starts going, and all these people started bringing stuff, and I had everything from um, the little hibachi cook stoves, brand new. I think there was like 60 pairs of pants and overalls and jackets and socks, and it filled the sleeper in Mike's truck. Just of what, and I didn't really know, you know, I didn't, I didn't know why it was all coming at first, and then somebody told me about this post, and I looked at the post, and I thought, shit, I didn't mean for the, you know what I mean? I didn't mean for it to end up like that, but that's the way it ended up. But that just proved how many people, like it was crazy the amount of people bringing stuff. I ended up with, I think, three of those little cardboard boxes of the little hand pocket things that you put your hand in, you break them open and keep your hands warm. Boxes and boxes and stuff like that. And it was all from people that didn't know me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then and it never stopped. Like every day people was bringing. There was one guy brought us a salad every morning, me and Mike. He went to the Sobeys or wherever he got it, and I got a picture of him on my phone. But he brought a salad. He set it on the step of my truck every morning. There was a couple ladies, fella and his wife brought us coffee every morning. And then you'll see, I'm not sure if she got this picture, but they put a note on every coffee cup they brought us. And I kept most of the cups for souvenirs. But things like that, like it's hard to explain how much people helped. So
That's amazing, Guy. I'm a little verklempt here, man. I almost feel like I'm gonna cry or something because
yeah, well, there's a fella in Quebec. They own a big cement company, and they have, when they buy a new Mac, they take the floor mat out and put a different floor mat in because they don't want you stepping on the Mac emblem. You know how they got the Mac emblems on the floor mats? So
yep.
these guys literally had the Mac fellas from Ottawa come and check my truck every 3 days to make sure it was all good. And then I ended up getting to know them, and I stopped in on the way home, and the DEF was frigged up on Mike's truck, so they had a portable mechanic come and work on his truck, and they spent like 9 hours working on my truck, and they wouldn't take anything for it. It was just crazy what people were doing, right?
I try and explain this to people, like again, I live in the United States now,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife likes to get on my case about, she tells me like I'm never gonna get over this, and I keep talking about it, but you live here, and why does it matter?
Yeah,
And but she does acknowledge that because she's come with me to visit my sister, and she's heard all the stories, and she's like, wow,
yeah,
I get it, things were really crazy in Canada, but I don't think like a lot of Americans and a lot of these people that like hid in their houses and wore their pajamas all day long and had email jobs, and they
yeah,
didn't dare venture out, like they didn't understand what it was like for people that are working, like you're a
right.
trucker and you're doing your thing, and a lot during that time when everyone's hiding out at home. A bunch of us still had to work. Like
Yep.
I was hauling propane and doing like home
Yep.
heating propane, and in the winter time, 2020, 2021, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, and all kinds of other people had to keep going to work and work
Yep.
through this thing. And oh, we love our essential workers. And oh, do you? Why,
Yeah.
why, why is it that these of the most essential people in the modern economy are truck drivers? They keep everything moving. And
Yep.
Trudeau took a huge steaming fucking dump on them. And then
Yep.
you guys believed everything the media had to say about what was going on in Ottawa that was lies. But then regular, normal working class people that had to keep going to work, that
Yep.
understood the score, came out in droves to
Yep.
support you and bring you coffee, bring you food, bring
Oh,
you jackets, help you
it's
fix your truck,
unbelievable.
put fuel in it.
Yep.
And I've heard so many different stories of this happening to so many other people. It's like, when I say I want regime change and like I don't want to be the 51st state, the people I want in charge of Canada are the people that brought you coffee. That guy from
Exactly.
the guy from the Massey Ferguson dealer who had his
Yep.
boys put your belts back on.
Yep.
That veteran that paid for your fuel. That's who
Yep.
I want in charge of Canada. Those are the
Yep.
people that should be running the show, not these fucking
100%.
idiots like Justin Trudeau and the morons that believe everything he says.
Yeah, 100%. Like I'm kind of, I don't know, I can be a little bit stubborn, but a couple different times I'd stop at the All Act Big Stop. You know where that is?
Yes, sir.
So I stopped in there to get fuel. I think it was like $800. And I didn't wear a mask, and I'm not going to wear a mask. So I walked in, went to make a hot dog. And the woman says, "You got to get out. You're not wearing a mask. We're not serving you." I said, "Well, that's what you say." So I put the hot dog stuff down, and away I went. And I said something to her, and away I went out. "Well, you've got to pay for your fuel." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, you got to pay for, you just got fuel." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you can't serve me because I'm not wearing a mask. How's this going to work?" I said, "You've got to accommodate me. So what are you going to do?" So I wrote my name and number, the fuel and the date and everything on a piece of paper, and I handed it to her. I said, "You can come to my house and get your money, and you don't need a mask there." "Well, I'm phoning the police." I said, "We'll call them up." I said, "I'll wait here for about 20 minutes before I leave, but get him here quick." So they come, and the cop went in and talked to her, and he came out and talked to me. He says, "Well," he said, "I really don't think you had intentions on stealing any fuel." I said, "No." I said, "But I want some common sense here, right? Maybe the judge, who's supposed to be smarter than all of us, I'll go to court and he can explain to me what they can serve you for and what they can't." The cop says, "Well, I'm not going to charge you with nothing." He said, "You might get a summons to go to court in a few months, and that's about all I can do." He says, "Have a good day." And I never did get the summons. So, it wasn't my intention to not pay for the fuel, but somebody's got to explain to me, if you're serving you, you're serving you. It don't matter if it's 800 of fuel or $2 for a hot dog, right? And these people don't realize that. And to this day, I never got my summons to go to court over that fuel.
Yeah,
That's funny.
roller dog rebellion.
I think about it every now and I think, fuck, how dumb are these people, right?
Yeah, I
But they just, I think if the government came out with a pill and everybody in Canada had to take it, and you had a 50% chance of dying, I think most of the people would take it if the government said to take it.
Yeah, no, and they have the same voting franchise we do. It's pretty bad. But Guy, you're back home now. You're still dealing with all of this lawfare and trips back to
Yep,
Ottawa, but in between, apparently you're still working and hauling cars. So what
yep.
exactly do you so you mentioned that you got the R model parked. When you go trucking, what are you driving? What's your
Well,
regular truck?
I got a Turbine Suburban. It's a Volvo because they all drive Volvos, right? But my friend bought a truck that was smashed up, or I'm sorry, it had the motor blown up in it, and he needed the motor change, and it was really expensive to take two motors out and put one in another truck. So I said, "I'll change the motors if you give me this Volvo you got." So I changed the motors for him, and he gave me this Volvo, and I've been driving it ever since. It's a good truck. It works good. The turning radius is good on it, and it's got gobs of power, and it goes good.
Right. What are you normally hauling with it?
Crush cars. Like my friend's got the car crushers. He's got 3 of them. So I generally haul those. I don't care what I haul really,
But so
but
have you got like a triaxle step deck or something? Stack them up on.
triaxle step deck, yeah, and a double drop for machinery and stuff.
Right.
So
So
it's generally flatbed stuff. I won't haul lumber because I don't want to be up tarping loads, right? Just because I'm getting old and I could slip and fall pretty easy.
oh, never mind that. The sort of stereotype is that lumber don't pay very much anyway.
No, don't. I tell you the good thing about hauling crushed cars is nobody wants to haul them, right? And it's
Why?
kind of weird. Like,
Why is that? They're pretty easy. Just chain the things down and hang up that little net so that you don't have no
yeah,
parts fall off it, and away you go.
and that's what I do. Like I'll go load and everything in the daytime, but I generally haul them at night because sometimes from Yarmouth to Halifax you'll only meet 2 or 3 cars, right? So therefore, if and I haven't ever had nothing fall off, knock on wood, but I have had stuff. The nets have caught them, like a caliper or something, or a piece of a stove or something will fall down. The net will catch it, and it's all fine, right? Like it's safe, but people just don't want to do it, and I don't mind doing it.
Right. And so you just you do that mostly just within Nova Scotia?
Yes, because it's the way it is right now. It ain't worth it to take it to Quebec like they used to. It's just the trucking is so expensive.
Right. Yeah. No. The more miles you put on something, the more it costs. The less market price it has.
Yeah, like gas here now or diesel is $1.98 a liter.
Oof.
That's crazy, and there's no need of it.
No. Well, I mean, there's been lots of talk about the Energy East pipeline and the problem with Quebec getting in the way of the development of that, and Canada's buying oil from the Saudis and other countries and
Yeah,
gets stuffed into that Irving refinery there over in New
yeah,
Brunswick, and we're
yeah.
not, all you guys out east there are burning foreign oil instead of Canadian oil.
That's right. I don't know why they can't come down through Maine with the pipeline. But Daniel Smith is talking about going up around Quebec up north. That'd be awesome, I think.
What, like put it in the ocean?
I'm not. Well, she's just set up north.
Right. No, I mean, there's been some talk of, you know, there's a port facility at Churchill. The problem is Hudson Bay freezes over a lot, so your shipping window is pretty narrow.
Right, because she did mention icebreakers.
Yeah, yeah, they were probably talking about building a pipeline to Churchill. Yeah, that's like I say, the problem with that is, oil refineries run 24/7. There's only so much storage capacity,
Right.
and if you can only use the port for 4 months out of the year, you can't, that's not viable. I got a buddy that works up on that Mary River Iron Mine up on Baffin Island, eh?
On I know where that is.
Yeah, it's north end of Baffin Island. It's one of the biggest iron mines in the world, and almost nobody knows about it because it's on Baffin Island.
Really.
Yeah.
I had a good idea that about this pipeline thing is why doesn't the federal government just say we're going through Quebec regardless of what you say? You know,
Well, this is the
'cause-
problem. This reveals the issue with Canadian politics is that Quebec has an outsized influence on the federal government, and
yeah,
Quebec gets what it wants. And
100%.
unfortunately, there's good people in Quebec.
Yeah,
I love me some Quebec rednecks, man. Like,
yeah,
don't get me wrong, but their government, their provincial government, and their federal representatives are all smoking the same, crystal meth that Mark
yeah,
Carney and the rest of these
yeah,
guys are about offending the sky, and they're
yeah,
all they're all worried about the environment rather than, like, the lived reality and economics. So they're going to make it very difficult to put a pipeline through their turf. I mean,
yeah.
look what the Quebec government has a long history of this, right? Like, look at your neighbors there in Newfoundland and that
Churchill
Churchill
Falls. Yeah,
Falls, and how they ripped off the Newfoundland government for decades.
yeah,
And when they built the expansion to that, or Churchill Falls 2 or whatever they're calling it, all the power lines for that are going down through the Gulf of St. Lawrence and then through Nova Scotia to get to the US because they wanted to bypass Quebec.
yeah. There's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, because the government's retarded. That's it.
Yeah,
That's the reason.
no, that's exactly it. And oh, I just when I'm talking about this convoy stuff, I keep blabbering and getting sidetracked and stuff. But I just wanted, before I forget it, when we was down in Washington at Donald Trump's thing, we all had red hoodies on that said "Make Canada Great Again." So the way the people are down there to us, I was up in getting something in the canteen, and there was about 200 people in front of us. But one of our friends was right up at the counter, Carolyn Peters. So I kind of walked around everybody, and I hollered over, "Can you grab a couple of hamburgers?" Right? So she said, "Yeah, sure." So, and we was right at the front of the line, and the first guy in line said, "Are you from Canada too?" I said, "Yeah." And he said he opened up the rope thing. He said, "If you're from Canada, you get right in the front of the line." And everybody agreed with him. So they literally let us go around everybody and get in front of the line, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, when I came home from being up in Ottawa during the convoy, and I went back to work, I was hauling propane, and then I quit working for that job and I started hauling logs again. Um, I'd be driving around upstate New York and Pennsylvania every day, and I never seen more Canadian flags than in that February and March and
Yeah,
into the spring. Normal, regular, working class Americans,
yeah,
uh, Trump supporting type people were all about Canada. And when
yeah,
I would meet people and they'd hear my accent and they'd say, "Hey, you from around here?" I said, "Well, I live here now, but I'm originally from Canada."
yeah,
And to a person, they would say, "We are so happy with the Canadian truckers finally standing up to this
yeah,
nonsense, and we wish somebody in America would have done the same thing."
yeah, yeah. No, that's the people down there. They're really, and really, they're all good people. Like we get down south sometimes in the winter and buy old rust-free vehicles and stuff and bring them home, and everybody you meet down there, they're just, you know, they go out of their way to help you and things like that, right? Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, Americans are way more friendlier than the typical attitude back home we're led to
Yep.
believe by the media. The media is like, "Oh, we're so polite and nice and we're like, humble, modest Canadians." No,
Yeah.
no, you're projection artists and you're full of shit.
Yep.
And
Yeah. You're right.
Americans are actually way more friendly than we are.
Yeah. No, I believe that 100% because you got to be up here and see it to believe it, right?
Yeah, no,
And
there's a weird provincialism and insular attitude. Not all Canadians, like lots of people back home are perfectly fine and will help you out.
yeah,
I mean, look at all the help and love and good vibes you guys and everybody else in the
yeah,
convoy got. It's just that like there used to be this old book called The Two Solitudes, which was an examination of like how like English Canada and French Canada got along.
yeah,
And I think the new two solitudes is between regular working class Canadians and the sort of the professional managerial class that listen to the CBC and believe everything it
yeah,
says.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. And they like the people, and there was one couple people started this thing called Hug a Trucker, and there was one other one I can't remember what the other one was, but there was when we get out of the police there when when we got out of the station where they arrested us, they literally took us 5 miles out of town and dumped us off at a intersection. We had no idea where we were. It was -20. It was fucking cold. Sorry, my language again. Anyway, these
Oh,
this Melissa lady had they own what they call the biker church, and she literally
Melissa McKee.
yes, yes. So you know a bit about her arranging for everybody that was stuck out nowhere. She had vehicles, people that she knew, people she didn't know, just so many people volunteering to come pick us up. And that's what they did, right? And that's just another instance of what the people were like. Like it was crazy the amount of people helping. But yeah,
Yeah.
she actually come down last summer, and they're going to have their vacation down here this summer. But
Oh,
I go
good.
visit them in Ottawa all the time when I go up, and there's always different people I visit, right? All people, and I think we're better off than Trudeau because all these people that we met, we've all got really good friends now, right? You know, uh, the convoy introduced me to thousands of people that I didn't know before.
And they'll
So
be they'll be your friends for life. You
they're
guys
your friends.
you guys have built up what we call social capital, and Monsieur Trudeau is going to spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. He's going to have a security detail not unlike the Secret Service in the United States gives to their former presidents. And he'll be the
Yeah,
first prime minister in the history of the country to require it because basically everybody hates him.
everybody
And
hates them. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think anybody would try and kill him, but he believes that people would try and kill him, and for good reason because
yeah,
he drove Canada into the shitter, and
yeah.
I don't know that it's ever going to recover. So
Well,
here you have friends, I have friends that we're going to have for the rest of our lives,
yep, yep,
and that guy's a marked man, and that's
yep. Good
basically
people too.
that's right. But that's the only accountability we're ever going to get is to know that we were introduced to so many other good people, loving people
Yep,
with deep hearts that really
yep,
care about their fellow citizens, right?
yep.
We got that. He gets the security detail.
Yeah, that's right. There was numerous instances like this, but there was a fella. I got a picture of him on my phone. Was walking around with a little brown envelope, and he had $10,000 in it, and he was giving $500 a piece to the truck drivers, and he wouldn't hand it out to you. He'd come up and shake your hand, and he'd have $500 bundled up in his hand. Then he'd pull his hand back really fast. So and then once you had it, he wouldn't take it. He wouldn't take it back. Yeah, it
That's
was it was
amazing.
it was right. But I met so many cool people up there that I'll never forget them, right? And it's like I say, my biggest problem is when I'm talking about it, I get jammering and yabbering about all the different things that happen. Well, I change subjects about 20 different times about the 20 different times that people have done stuff, right? Which I
Yeah.
don't mind doing it, and it's kind of neat that it happens. But just you'll never be able to, you know what it's like. You'll never be able to recounter everything that happened because so much stuff happened.
All right. Well, hey, listen, Guy, I really appreciate your time. I'm hoping to be in Ottawa. I've got some work stuff coming up, and I'm not quite sure how the schedule is going to crack out. But
Yeah,
hopefully, I'll be there for your next appearance in court.
yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm gonna try and be there for the ruling on Tim Ehrlich and Chris Barber's thing. I'm only 5 hours from Ottawa, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna work schedule permitting. I'm gonna try and get up there. And
yeah,
it'd be a real honor to meet you. And if you're ever down in New York State trucking or picking up
yeah,
cars or doing whatever, man,
yeah,
my door's always open to you, brother.
yeah. We might be coming down here in a week or so to get to North Carolina. Actually, if you're if you got a chance that you might go up there, Melissa was going to have a book signing thing for Donna's book
Oh, good.
at the biker church, and I think it was going to be on the 16th.
Right. Well, if I'm around and my wife will let me come.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm gonna bring up a feet of lobster or something that they can she can cook too.
wow. Yeah. I remember when my dad was trucking to New Brunswick, he used to do that. He would fill up a cooler with,
Yep,
he'd stop and pick them up in Shediac
yep.
sometimes, bring home lobster for us.
Well, when Melissa and Chris and them come down last summer, my friend's got a lobster boat here, so I called them up and I said, "These guys have never been on the East Coast, so we want to have a lobster cook." And I don't even like lobster myself, but I said I want to get a few lobsters to cook. So he said, "Yeah, no problem." So his daughter calls me up an hour later, and she says, "Well, what do you guys got planned for tomorrow?" I said, "I don't know, not too much. They're just arriving today." She said, "Well, would they want to go out on a lobster boat and pull up their catch the lobster that they're going to eat? Right, that's going to be about the freshest you'll ever get them." So we ended up loading like 20 people on Mark's lobster boat, and he took us all around Cape Split and pulled up some traps and pulled the lobster out, and they cooked them right on the boat, which was kind of cool.
Man, that's awesome. I hope I get to visit you out in Nova Scotia someday. I got friends out there I haven't seen in forever.
Yeah,
I knew a lot of truckers from Nova Scotia when I was up on the ice and working in Alberta too.
Yeah, I did that for a few years up north in Zama and Rainbow Lake and that
Oh wow.
Fort Nelson, Fort Nelson, and that was kind of fun up there. I think I went up there 6 winters.
Yeah, no, there's with Alberta and BC and the Northwest Territories would have been hard up to get any work done without all you East Coast boys.
Well, I remember vividly getting my very first paycheck, and it was $4,700 for 2 weeks. So I went to the office. I said, "Holy jumpings, lady!" I said, "Somebody made a mistake here." Well, why is that? She said. I said, "Well, look at the money I got. My check is $4,700. Oh, did we make a mistake? Is that not enough?" And I thought, "Holy shit!" So I don't like. There was some people are fussy what they do up there, like they won't drive a pilot truck or whatever. So whenever my foreman would ask people to do something and they wouldn't do it, I said, "Don't even bother asking them. Like, you know, I'm not going to refuse nothing." And I remember when breakup was coming, nobody wanted to go drive in the mud. So it ended up after a while that he would always come to me because I told him that home, if we want to go mud bogging through the mud, we got to go to the races and pay to get in and race our trucks, pickup trucks. But you're going to pay me to drive your truck through the mud. So it's simple. I'm going to do this, right? Oh, and he laughed. But no, that was fun up there.
Yeah, no, man, that's simple pleasures of life, and what a turnaround. You go out there to work, and they pay you to drive their equipment in the dirt.
Exactly. What better life would you get?
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Guy. All right, man. Well, listen, hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
I really appreciate it. Can people find you online anywhere?
Yep. I got a Facebook thing. I think it's called, well, my name part is one part of it, but there's another one, the Sheriff Monster Truck Rides, because that's my monster truck. And or my name is on the Facebook thing too.
All right. Well, when we get off here, send me the links, and I'll put them in the notes. If anybody listens to this, they can come track you down.
Yeah. No, if
Well,
anybody ever wants to come visit or anything like that, we've never had anybody come to visit that didn't want to come back. So that's a good record to have.
yeah, real down home hospitality. And
Yep.
while we're here, we'll plug Donna's book, Thank You Truckers, available
Yeah.
on Amazon and all fine bookstores everywhere. Go check that out. Guy
Yeah.
is
She came down and spent the day with me, and we went for a drive in the truck and everything. And she's a really cool lady.
she sure is. I've interviewed her on this show twice, and I'm gonna get her on again to talk about the book again now that it's out. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna get one of them here. Um, it should be here soon, actually.
yeah,
But I haven't read a book since grade 8, so it's going to be weird that I'm going to sit down and read a book.
well, I highly recommend that you do, sir. In her
Yep.
book, you're gonna meet even more people from the convoy than what you even met when you were in Ottawa.
Yeah.
As I understand it, it's 400 and something pages long, so it's got lots
Wow.
going on. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's probably a top-notch book too.
yes, sir. All right, hey, Guy,
Cool.
thanks again for coming.
Yep. No problem. I'll talk to you again someday.
Yes, sir. Way of the road.